How to automating collection testing in GitHub. Streamline Ansible collection testing with GitHub Actions. GitHub Actions provide a powerful and flexible platform for automating workflows directly within your GitHub repository. One common use case is automating the testing of collection in Ansible, ensuring that each component functions as expected. This guides you through the setup of GitHub Action workflow for testing Ansible collection using .github/test.yml configuration. Let's break down the structure. There is a name that describes the GitHub Action, concurrency that specify how many tasks in parallel, and the jobs deep down on different testing scenarios with different Ansible version and Python version. Specifically, it tests the 2.16, 2.15 and 2.14 with at least two different versions of Python. Now everything seems very nice and clean in our editor. In my case, I'm using Visual Studio Code and with a standard configuration for my Ansible collection. But now let's get a little bit more fun running this code in our GitHub Action. Cool. But first of all, we need a GitHub repository. So now this code resides only on my machine. Let's move on to my GitHub profile. This is the standard dashboard. It might look a little bit different, but this is the component. In my case, let me create a new repository for my collection. Let's be a little bit more specific. In my case, the collection is called foo.bar. So let me create a foo.bar collection, and let's add also a description so our team know exactly what to expect here. Repository for the Ansible foo.bar collection. Cool. Let me leave this repository public. You can choose between public and private, and I don't need any extra file at this point in time. Cool. Now the repository is actually created and I can start putting the file inside. There are some general instructions how to create a new repository by command line, or how to push some data from an existing repository. In my case, I'm gonna use the how to create a repository from the command line. We can use also our IDE, but each IDE has a different procedure. I rather prefer to stay with command line because it give me the control of this process. Welcome to my terminal. So first of all, I need to actually locate where the collection file actually resides. In my case, I'm using the standard path from Visual Studio, that is inside .ansible/collection/ansible_collection, and I'm inside the foo.bar collection. Great. As you can see, using git status, this directory is not a Git repository. So we need to actually initialize and synchronize with a GitHub website. Okay, using git init, I'm gonna create actually a new Git repository without any file. Now let's add all the files in the current directory using git add and dot, which specify the current directory, and a commit message in my case will be git commit first commit. Here we are. Great, so we create the commit, we create our initial repository. Now we actually need to inform our local Git that we would like to transfer the file. So let's specify the branch, in this case a main. Main is the default one. It used to be master, but now we use more main. And let's add the origin, that is the remote destination where we are going to store the file. So git remote add origin, git at github.com Luca B85, that is my current username, and the name of a repository. This information you can find out in your GitHub. If you're using a different source control system, this information will be different. It just changed the remote site, but all this behavior will be the same. Now let's use a git push to the origin on the main branch. It's gonna take a moment. In my case, my connection gets stuck, so I decide to press Ctrl C to cancel and retry again. Here we go. In a blink of an eye, our data will be compressed and transferred online. Now the code that was inside my machine is synchronized with a remote repository, and the magic could happen. Now we can start checking the website to see if the file resides there, and we can start trigger our first GitHub action in our collection code. Back on my browser, it still shows the same information as before. It looks like that the repository is empty, but when we refresh the page, we get all the tree structure with a directory, with a file that we used to have in our current file. As you can see, also the README page look like very well formatted using the Markdown standard, and there are also some information that we can add for the usage of our full bar collection. But the most important part is how we actually take advantage of a GitHub action. Go into the action area. As you can see, there is a GitHub action for full bar. That is exactly the workflow that we saw earlier in this video in Visual Studio. When this workflow is triggered to be executed with a schedule every day at midnight, but we can force the execution manually. The execution might take a while because, as we expected, our code is going to be tested against Ansible 2.14, 15 and 16 using different Python configuration. I speed up a little bit the video so we can get directly to the result. As you can see, each test can have a positive or negative result, and is shown by the red circle when there is something that is not working. And in my case, there is a lot of error. This is exactly what the pipeline is meant to be, to catching the error earlier in our development phase so we can sort it out and get a better overview. But the best part is that if we scroll down, we have a clear overview of each file that creates the error. And as you can see, there is a combination of Python 3.9 on the Ansible 2.14, Python 3.10, and different testing execution. This is so great because it saves time during our testing phase and to early detect possible problem in our production system. So we just need to go one by one to all these problems. As you can see, some of these are very trivial. It's just some line that we need to correct the code. But this is a great overview of the type of tests that are executed every time we commit some code on the GitHub. I really like the GitHub action because they superpower our Ansible. By using the GitHub action workflow defined in the .github test.yml file, you can automate the testing of Ansible collection, ensuring that changes to your repository are validated completely. This setup promotes efficiency, consistency and reliability in your development process. Feel free to customize your workflow to fit your specific need to your project. And now let's automate more. The sky's the limit. We just need to sort it out all this error so our collection can be successfully published. Yay!